On today's episode,
what new madness is this? 14 plus years, overqualified in that department. Easy control, easy flying, that suits me. Gyro stabilized, has to be good. Flying features, easy to fly, even if you've never flown a model before. Well, I'm trying to get back into my fixed wing flying, having various degrees of success and or failure, depending. There's an area of open ground quite near to my house, which means I don't have to drive to go flying, but I need a smaller model to be able to fly there. And this seems to fit the bill. It has everything included, apart from glue. We're going to try this glue and see if it melts the foam or not. There are various stories on the internet about it. But we have a little controller and obviously all of the parts and fittings that we need. Let's get this assembled and see if it's actually as easy to fly as it says. It's important to test that the glue that we're going to use is not going to melt or deform the foam. There's many different types of foam, many different types of glue. I know for a fact that this glue contains toluene, which is bad news for many types of foam. But if we test it out on some non-structural piece like this engine nacelle, what a great word, nacelle, then we can test it and make sure that it's going to be safe for the more important things like the wings. The good thing is we're supplied with some paper instructions. However, they are tiny, so you're going to have to equip yourself like Sherlock Holmes and get yourself a magnifying glass to see those instructions. Essentially, we need a little glue. There's no applicator for this, unfortunately. It's probably much too much glue. It'll test whether it's safe for this foam or not. I can't see any bubbling or smoking or anything that's indicating that it's doing anything bad. You can see that it's melting something as the colouring is coming off, but hopefully that's just the paint. Just got myself a little cocktail stick to apply the glue. Yeah, so that's fixed, and it appears that the glue is not having any great detrimental effect on the foam. But I will just leave that for maybe 20 minutes or so and come back and inspect it again just to make sure that there's no other effects going on. Now, I'm not going to go through every single step because that would be extremely tedious. I will just point out anything that I feel is important to explain and possibly not immediately obvious. And the first of those questions is, what is left and what is right? I have the two motors which are identified clearly as right and left, and different coloured plugs that go into the controller. But which is the left wing and which is the right wing? Now, remembering back to my childhood and assembling airfix kits and such like, it always says that any description of left and right is given as if you were in the cockpit as the pilot. With the plane in this direction, this will be the left and this will be the right. Or is it port and starboard? Is there any red port left? Anyway, let's get those glued on, and that's my explanation. If it turns in circles or goes backwards, then we'll know why. Now, getting somewhere now. When fitting the wings, you want to fit the left wing first because they overlap. A little extra glue in this part here would help. Little. We can leave that to set up now. The last piece of the puzzle is obviously to fit the flight controller board. But just before we glue that into place, it would be a very good idea just to check that everything is moving in the correct directions for the motors and obviously for the elevator. The connection for the elevators is quite short, so I suggest doing that last. We have the left and right motors which clearly go into the same coloured sockets here. So let's do that. There is a small bump on the connector which lines up with a hole in the socket. This is rather fiddly. And finally the elevators. Again, there's two little pips on the connector there. With those firmly in place, we can now attach the battery. And I've fitted my favourite Eneloop rechargeables to power the unit, so that should be good. Switching on the transmitter first. We've got a flashing light there. Switching on the flight controller. Similarly flashing light. And I guess now, with both being solid, it is bound. So we can see the elevator moving there, up and down. And that's correct. And now if we put some throttle on, we go to the left. And that's correct, so that will be pushing that way. Go to the right. And of course it's going to turn to the right. It appears that we have done everything correctly. Just one other thing to point out, there are two buttons on the top here. This one controls the amount of throw, so it has like a beginner mode, which it's in at the moment. If you click that button in, you get the flashing on the controller. So normally your throws are like this, and then when you get comfortable with it, you can increase the throw. All is good. Just get that hatch glued in place now and we're good to go. It's a little breezier than I would have liked, but we have to go with what we've got, and only a dirt runway. Wish me luck. This thing is a blast. Okay, so we can see it's being buffeted around by the wind. And the tree. Did you see that tree reach out and grab it? I don't think we've sustained any particular damage. I feel for those passengers. We can clearly see the gyros working, overworking. It's landed on its own. I think we've probably done the battery in. While I'm changing the battery for the second battery, which is supplied in the kit, just a couple of notes for those people that like to know every single detail. The all-up weight is some 64.66 grams, and probably 4 grams of that is my glue. The centre of gravity is exactly where the main landing gear sits under the main wing. Finally, my thanks go to Banggood for supplying this model for review and helping me on my quest to return to the skies. See it really be buffeted around there. Well, this is a blast. This is really, really fun. People say it's cheating because it has the gyroscope, but whatever works to get me back in the air. I think the batteries are getting a bit low. Let's just try a hand launch for grins. Just trying on the glide there. Clearly on the glide it doesn't turn. This tree has certainly got it in for me.